Hello and welcome to Inside Grand Prix. Today, everything on the race in Singapore, including high speed through high tech, telemetry in Formula One, plus the first and only world champion in his own car, the legendary Jack Brabham. So it's off to Singapore, the Black Pearl of Asia. Singapore, translated the Lion City. According to legend, in the island's deepest jungle, a Hindu prince encountered a lion. That left such an impression on him that he named the island after the animal. However, neither is Lewis Hamilton a prince, nor has a lion ever set as much as a paw on Singapore soil. So let's continue with definite facts. Around half the island is covered in vegetation. To many people's horror, however, one plant has conquered it all: durian. The taste, exquisite. Its smell, however, at best, exotic. Its stench is so penetrating that it's forbidden by law even to carry the fruit with you on public transport. Bizarre laws abound in Singapore. Eating and drinking on public transport, banned. Smoking in public, heavily fined. Crossing the road, only at zebra crossings. Fancy some chewing gum? Fine, but only with a prescription. Even minor infringements are punished with a beating or excessively high fines. High too are the temperatures. Annual average 30 degrees Celsius, plus extremely high air humidity, which makes it feel like you're drowning on land. A damp, wet affair. One that has not only our drivers sweating on the big day, or evening. We're all happy that the race is at night because during the day it's much too hot. But there are some who join in with this nonsense and say we're keeping to the European rhythm so that the processes are exactly the same. I can perhaps give a scientific reason for that. When the Lord turns the light out, Christian goes to sleep. When the Lord turns the light back on, Christian gets up. Seen that way, it's naturally therefore very nice in Singapore if you get up early to do some sport. Tough laws, unbearable climate, penetrating fragrances. Bring it on! Nightlife, neon jungle, and a fantastic Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel has shown us that with a cool head, it's possible to properly clean up in Singapore. 4 times he's come out on top in the Lion City, 3 of them in succession. Along with Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso, Vettel is one of only 3 drivers to date to have won the Singapore Grand Prix. Now, F1 goes east. Is the Orient ready for motorsport's elite? They have it, Azerbaijan, as well as Bahrain, Abu Dhabi. And now, everyone wants it. Red Bull Racing carries the magic of Formula One to the Middle East, with smoking tyres and roaring engines. Lebanon, Oman, Jordan. The Arab world is already on fire, and now wants a larger piece of the prestigious Formula One cake. The nearly Arabian Azerbaijan has succeeded. The Minister of Sports brings Formula One to Baku, promoting his country particularly cost-effective.
When you promote the country, you place some videos, country promotion videos in the biggest channels, and you pay huge amount of money for that. Due to Formula One, all those channels will broadcast Formula One, and Baku will see, the whole world will see Baku. So this is the reason why we are doing it, because we are studying experience of the other countries, other promoters who have been doing that for many years, like Singapore, for example. And we see that the return on investment in Singapore is huge. So this is the model that we would like to apply to Azerbaijan.
Until the Orient lives the dream of 1001 horsepower, Red Bull gives wings to the hearts of people and fuels the desire for Formula One. And now, with 3 pros around the sparkling Marina Bay circuit.
Welcome to the Singapore Grand Prix.
The only real night Grand Prix. I think it's cool, but because we are there and we keep in the European rhythm, we don't really get to see that much of the day and of normal things, because we would pretty much sleep till lunchtime, then we get up and we get to work. So in Singapore you don't really have much of a social life there.
It'll be my 200th Grand Prix, actually, thinking
Really?
about it. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's quite, it is amazing.
To think about it, I think it feels to me like I started just yesterday.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, the temperature and the humidity, you know, on top of a street circuit, which is demanding on its own, make it really tough. The toughest race of the season for me as a driver. So it's really important to really arrive to Singapore in a first-class physical shape. And it's just an amazing venue. If you see what they've done, how they've built that track into a massive hub like Singapore.
When you're driving, it looks like it's daytime really within the lights, but then beyond the lights you see it's nighttime. You see all the big buildings, you see people flashing lights, taking pictures. It's a very, very long track. There's lots of corners, so it goes on forever.
My favorite part of the track is probably turn 1 after the start, you know, because it's such a battle going into there. Everybody's trying to dive down there, and people take more risks because there's a runoff.
Yep.
You know, there's not a wall on the exit, so even if you get it wrong, okay, you're going to go around the runoff and not lose too much time. And that's a big challenge, which I enjoy.
Well, it's so hard to overtake as well. You've got to you've got to get the positions off the grid.
Yeah.
And no one's ever got a 1-2 in Singapore.
Really?
So that might be a good target.
Because it's such a long track, it's very difficult to pinpoint the right balance, because you have some high speed, you have some medium speed and low speed. You have bumpy parts, you have smooth parts. It's probably one of the trickiest, most complex circuits.
And as you know, the key thing with Singapore is it's all about the tyre temperatures. The straights are so short, the tyres can't cool down, and in the corners they just get hot. So it's understanding how you manage those temperatures, and around the lap, you know if you push flat out in sector 1 and 2, you can kill the tyre for sector 3. So it's about balancing the whole lap. But there's so many corners there, 23 corners, more than any other circuit.
Well, I'm sure you guys are going to make just the right choice for us out there.
We will try, yeah. You know, it's all about the unknowns, and strange things happen there, safety cars at peculiar times, so very difficult one to predict.
It's very, very difficult to get the perfect lap together.
See you there.
And now to the current standings. In the battle at the top, it's getting exciting. Only 2 points now separate Rosberg and Hamilton, and Vettel is edging a key bit closer to Ricciardo. 4th place is also being hotly contested. Here, the old hands at Williams again have their nose ahead of the underdogs, Sahara Force India. The fastest lap was done by former champion Fernando Alonso, the Matador's first entry on the fastest lap challenge list. New competition in the pit lane. For the first time this season, Red Bull with Daniel Ricciardo delivered the quickest pit stop. The curvy track in hot Singapore brings the drivers to their limits. For the Brembo engineers, the hardest braking point on the Marina Bay street circuit in Singapore is approaching Memorial Corner. Here the driver has to decelerate by 229 kilometers per hour over just 131 meters inside 1.43 seconds. In the process, power of 2,203 kilowatts gets released. The driver is subjected to 5.1 G and has to push with 155 kilograms onto the brake. Now, the essential for developing a Formula One car. Telemetry data broken down. Every day, information is getting more important for us, and above all, more easily accessible. We know every route, are always contactable, and always hooked up. A huge wealth of knowledge just a click away. Formula One is a pioneer of the digital revolution.
Der technische Aufwand
The technical complexity is much, much greater. 93 was when we started using computers. We had a couple of laptops with us. Today it's proper workstations. We undoubtedly take over 100 screens to every race, have servers linked to the company at home, and live telemetry. There was none of that in the past, and I do think that the internet has played a key role in the change. Information technology plays a key role in today's Formula One, and the more up-to-date the collected information, the more valuable. Which is why today nothing is possible anymore without telemetry, the remote transfer of data. 2,000 sensors on the cars collect information about power output, torque, temperature, vibrations, and more. Every important component has at least one of the little data gatherers. As in aircraft, there's a black box in F1 cars too. It saves the readings and transmits them live to the pit. Standing there, ready to evaluate them, is a whole armada of engineers and strategists. And that's no exaggeration, as the data can often decide the race.
So sometimes you have to change your strategy. Even the fastest strategy, in theory, might not be the fastest strategy out there in the race. So you have to adapt to whatever's happening. Maybe a safety car, maybe an accident, maybe some other issues on your car. And you have to be fully aware of changes, whatever happens in a race.
In the cockpit too, remain flexible and react correctly. After the race, it's time for team and driver to analyze the data. What actually really interests the driver is the data that enables comparisons with your teammate that show you where you're faster, where you're slower, and comparisons with your competition. Then it's primarily about speed, what the driver can control, throttle, brake pedal, the steering wheel, so everything that you can influence yourself, because then you can compare. Is he braking later or earlier? Is he softer on the brakes? Is he cornering wider? Does he hit the throttle sooner? For the driver, the data record then looks like this. The white graph shows the engine speed, especially important in its interplay with the gear, here shown in green. Particularly relevant when shifting down ahead of corners. If gear and engine revs don't match perfectly, you lose track speed, shown by the red graph in kilometers per hour. The blue peaks above the pink line show when the driver operated the paddle switch. Any delays between input and shifting procedure get spotted at once. Top center, a cluster of 4 graphs showing the wheel revolutions per minute. 1 graph for each wheel. There are spikes whenever tires spin or lose grip, for example when going over curves. Also near the tires, but subject to less even loading, the shock absorbers. 4 graphs show how far which absorber compresses when. The bottom red line shows the driver's steering movements in degrees. Helpful for the driver, the matching of data with the ideal line. In the bottom section, the orange graph shows as a percentage how far the driver pushes the throttle down. The counterpart to that, the brake pedal. Here, however, the measurement unit is not percent, but bar. The races come thick and fast, meaning lots of homework for the driver. How does the car behave? Where are the weak spots? The data can also show that here and there in that corner and approximately that speed, I feel this and that this has to get better. Everything that gets very technical relating to temperatures, the engine and the interaction with the components, that's perhaps primarily not so important for the driver. But all the more interesting for the engineers. Alongside oil and fuel pressure, temperatures and so on, every part is monitored in minute detail. So in the case of each tire, not just overall, but also core and surface temperature. Also on board, pitot tubes to measure speed, GPS modules, and of course, communications modules. They transmit data to the file servers in the pit lane. From there, it's on by satellite to the team's data centers. In Ferrari's case, around 100 engineers monitor the data live, many of them in Maranello. If the track team can't solve a problem, they're the call a friend backup. Whether on-site or from afar, the key to success is teamwork. Yes, I think that's what makes the difference, having a good relationship with the race engineer and with the team around you so that you can debate the issues clearly, not just saying okay with the engineer insisting on what he sees in the data and the driver on what he feels, but rather finding common ground. It's very interesting because you do feel a lot of things that nevertheless get reflected differently in the data. If the driver has the chance to talk to the team and express himself, then we get to where we want to be much faster. And to the finishing line faster too. If sensors are the key to knowledge, then telemetry is the winged messenger. It gives strategists and engineers the ability to really see what's happening on the track. A quick pit stop, after which it's on to the next lap of Inside Grand Prix with two impressive characters, Jack Brabham, plus the man tasked with leading Ferrari out of its crisis, Maurizio Arrivabene. Don't go away.